Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Apologies for the late start. I was out in the garden and lost track of time and feel like Mario Brothers out there getting this irrigation settled. You know, these drip hoses, I tell you, they're a little bit tricky. If they get kinked, they won't drip to the rest of the garden. I'm like, why is part of it dry and why isn't it the other part isn't? So anybody knows a great drip system other than the drip hose, which sounds like a great concept, but really you have to it has to be a perfectly straight line. Anyway, let's get off of that and get on to some other stuff. Okay, so why are we here today? Well, this is the movie 1977 film Starship Invasions. And it was also called Project Genocide. Now, why is this important? Why are we looking at this today? Well, in this film, which we're going to look at clips from, there is a 5G frequency that causes a pandemic genocide that caused people to unalive themselves. They mention data centers literally by name. There are genetic experiments and even an Egyptian feathered serpent race of reptilian aliens. You guys, this is off the chain. And then after we decode this, I've got some important headlines to get caught up with you guys on. Now, first off, the obvious, right? For those of you that follow the Body Code series, you remember all the studies that we did on the human eye anatomy. I've got it positioned here on the left-hand side. And from what we were able to surmise through the Body Code, our entire body is made up as the kingdom of heaven and earth. The whole thing is encoded in our anatomy. That's the Body Code. I know some of you are new to the channel and you hear that mentioned. That's the core of it. Essentially, God created the entire history of mankind, even events mirrored in our anatomy. He probably did that so that we would know who our true creator was, the Most High. That is the Body Code. And from what we were able to surmise, now there are no hard and fast rules here, but from what we were able to surmise, what you're looking at on the left, the human eye anatomy is the shape, the true shape of Earth and its position within the celestial bodies that are above it. It is the center of the universe, contrary to popular belief. And so that is actually reflected in the movie cover poster because they know and they laugh at us, even though they show this globe Earth many, many times in the movie. I don't believe that that is the true shape. Now, I'm not going to die on the hill of that, but I will tell you that this is from our research and comparing the human anatomy to some of these things, it seems to line up perfectly. Now, what am I talking about? I can't just say that. Well, I'll give you a brief Body Code update on this before we get into the movie. As you can see on the right, they've got what appears to be the moon and the sun above the convex lens flying saucer. And over here, we have the lens Earth, which essentially would be the flying saucer, but it's the Earth. It isn't perfectly flat. It's actually raised in the middle like a mountain, like a tiered cake. Yes, water settles flat, but we also have such a thing called surface tension. Now, below here is hell, which is the iris of your eye. It is the pit, the black hole, the pupil going down into hell. And these down here are the lower waters. Now, this whole cavity is filled with water above and below. The waters below likely represent like the evil spirits, where the fountains of the deep, the Bible says in Genesis, where some of the water, much of the water came up from the fountains of the deep. Yes, it did rain 40 days and nights, but the Bible also says there was water from below. And when God flushed the toilet on earth, all of those waters receded back down into the fountains, probably carrying some of that dark flesh with it or whatever. Now, I'm throwing a lot at you, but understand that there are scriptural passages as well as with the Apocrypha that seem to support some of this, okay? It's up to you to go back and look to see if it all lines up. Now, This all around here, this is actually a structure in your eye that looks like a picket fence. And that's probably either the ice wall. Katy Perry talks about the white picket fence around the lens because they like to throw out these little truths here and there to mock us. That's what they feel gives them authority over us because we haven't figured it out yet and they have. So they like to mock us and throw it in our faces, throw us little bits of truth. And we're all trapped inside here. So here's Earth is the lens, and this is the vault. This is the firmament. So the eyeball is the firmament. Genesis says that the stars are fixed in the firmament. So you could look at this as a giant planetarium almost. Have you ever been to a planetarium where you sit in a chair on your back and you look up and there's a vault? Well, that's what the walls of the eye are. And in the human eye, they're filled with rods and cones, bipolar cells, and ganglion, I believe are the three different types, which look just like grapes, figs, and pomegranates. And they sit in the tree, which is the retina. See the retinal branches? That's like the tree. And then the trunk of the tree is what's called the hyaloid canal. This is the tree of life. This is the trunk of the tree of life. Likely the entrance is at the North Pole or the center of this lens. It's blocked by the northern lights, which are the angels swinging their swords. And I don't know how to explain Antarctica. I believe it's probably close to the ice wall. There are other people that around the edge of this. Let me complete my thought there. Others believe that it's just an extension, a trick of geography, that it's actually the Arctic. They just loop it around so that it looks like you're going to the south, but you're actually coming back into a circle and coming back to the North Pole. So there are two trains of thought. I don't claim to know. I haven't gotten an airplane and flew over there recently. Now that you have your bearings, we've got the tree of life. We're blocked from it. The rest of the trees of the garden are up in these branches. This is why I tell you guys, I believe that the Garden of Eden is above us. The access point is the tree of life. We can't get there. But once you get through the tree of life, all these trees connect to one another. So up here within the fruit of the garden are more trees and more trees. It's almost like our neuron system in our brain. You know, the neurons, you know how they all connect to each other and they're all a bunch of little trees? Well, that's what this is. The access point is a tree of life. We've been blocked from it, but this is the narrow gate to Jesus Christ. You go through the trunk of the tree, his sacrifice, between the two thieves, between the two eyes in your head. He was in the middle, in the pineal position. Now, all of this really happened. Jesus did come as a man, die for our sins, but it's all reflected in the human tissue. So don't get it twisted. Don't think that this is all just fake. And no, this actually all really happened. That's what proves the glory of God in the creation of things. We're all extensions of trees. Think about it. You were made in the image of a tree. When you really sit down and think about it, your basic image, the image of God, is a tree. You have a crown, you set down roots, you bear fruit, which are your children and your actions. You have a trunk or a core of your body. You have branches and limbs like a tree, right? There's all kinds of metaphors for us as trees. And this is biblical. There was a man his sight was restored by Jesus, and he saw people as trees. There are also many passages in the Bible that refer to trees. So that is an amazing study. If you want to do a really cool study in the Bible, just word search the word tree. And it starts in the garden, and then some of the prophets talk about pharaohs that were compared to trees, and that all of the nations of the earth and the birds of the air nested underneath a tree. It talks about all this. Now, when you go to church, they say, oh, that was metaphor. Well, maybe it was partially metaphor, but also there's something to it. Why compare them to a tree? Why not a lion or a tiger or whatever? A tree. Now, trees also represent the branching off of family bloodlines. You can kind of get a visual here. Notice how they show the red and the blue. That's the red and the blue bloodlines. The enmity between the two seeds Everything's about seeds and trees and fruit, the whole thing. And so this is the battle between good and evil. There is a false good and evil paradigm, the red and the blue paradigm of politics and all these things, and then there is the true core right left paradigm, which is actually true, and that is the two bloodlines, the enmity between one another that have been battling. The blue bloods are in control of this world. The red bloods are the seed of all of us grafted into the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, right? And the pure bloodline up until Jesus' crucifixion, because they maintained that through the 12 tribes of Israel, not the current Israel, the ancient Israel. So that's a Cliff Notes version of the hyaloid canal. Casey, where's the sun and moon? Well, I believe we're here, and the sun and moon and all the heavenly bodies that you see in the sky are inside this vault. We can't get to them, though, because as soon as you start leaving this, there's no thrust. There's nothing to push against anything. Every rocket scientist will tell you need atmosphere in order to push against something to thrust forward. So when there's no atmosphere, they've tricked us all into believing that, oh, you can keep going to infinity and beyond, right? But it's absolutely false. God made it that way so we can't get to heaven until we go through the narrow gate, till we believe in Jesus Christ. That's the only way. But the enemy's trying to find a back door. They're trying to find a different way. And the Bible says that as well. So what does that mean? Well, they're trying to figure out a way to get back to the garden, but there's no way. They can't get through to the garden, but they're trying to find a different way. That's why they're shooting up all these rockets. Basically, they go up, however high you can go, and then they run out of thrust, and they just float around up there. But they can't get to the sun, the moon. They can't get to any of the planets that you see or anything. Now, you might not want to call those planets, but there's something up there. You can see it with an amateur telescope. So I don't believe it's nothing. Now, could it be a reflection of, could the planets be a reflection of something else? Yes. I also believe that they might be wandering stars, which basically are remnants of the fallen ones. Like it was their fallen star that's just floating around up there, and their spirits are locked down here with us. That's a theory as well. I don't know all the answers. These are just studies that we've done over the years. Now, so sun and moon floating around up here. And you could say that the sun is a star, possibly, and in the firmament with the other stars, as Genesis says. So how is it rotating above us? Well, you could say it's some kind of reflection. Maybe the sun is a reflection and it's being moved around by an angel or something. So those are two theories about that. But this whole area up here is filled with water. Down here is filled with water. So now that you have your bearings, you can totally see that they're depicting all this. They've got the stars around the firmament. They've got the sun and moon above. They've got all this encapsulated, what looks like an inverted human eye anatomy. You've got these two are reptilians. This woman and this man they're actually reptilians. They're not humans. They're from, they say, outer space. But what's crazy is they're also underneath the ocean. We'll get into that as well. You guys are probably chomping at the bit. So notice where it says invasions, it's the letter I is like super prominent. Well, that's your eyeball. We did an amazing study about a decade ago, and we looked at the Greek word when Jesus says, I am. The Greek word for, let's look that up. Let me check when you guys were going to look that up, and I want to show you this. This is simply amazing. When Jesus said, I am, let's look it up. The Greek word for I. This is it right here. And it literally, even though I is, how do they describe that grammatically? It's the definition of this is yourself, right? When he says, I am, but look at the Greek word. It looks like the eye in your head, except this is rotated. But if you rotate this, it could be EYE, which is how you spell eyeball, right? So that is pretty fascinating. Now, the film opens with an alien abduction. And this guy, let's pull this up here. Here it is. This guy gets abducted and essentially he is abused by this alien woman. I'm not going to show you that part because she's like nude, but and all of the aliens have this feathered serpent insignia on their chest, and we'll break that down a little bit further as well. They abduct this farmer. They run studies on his sperm. So there's the male component, genetic studies. Let's keep watching. Here's the woman that abducted him and abused him. And then they abduct a woman and they go and take fluid out of her womb. So we have reproduction. Bingo. And this is what they're fascinated with even now to this day. This is the whole reason for 23andMe. This is the whole reason for IVF. When I did the IVF video the other day, it got flagged. And I was like, why did that video get flagged? It's because we were drawing attention to this whole genetic component, the mRNA, all of this, you guys. It's all connected. This is what the serpent race is after.
You will feel no pain.
So this is like the two shots. You got one in the man, one in the woman.
Have you removed the necessary fluids from the female?
Yes, but she is resisting the trance suggestions I have given her.
Now, at this point, the reptilians admit that they have to wipe out humanity in order to survive. They believe that they're descendants of the human race or the forefathers of the human race, and they have to wipe them out, which is not true. But this is, this whole ancient alien thing is like, it's a myth. It is not true. What's really happening is the serpent race is trying to combine with humans. Let's keep watching here.
If we are to survive, we must exterminate our own parent race.
Then we get submersible UFOs. Now, these were first reported in the 1950s. But in this case, the reptilians have a pyramid and all-seeing eye base at the bottom of the ocean. Now, think about this. Before I show you this clip, remember, here's our diagram. There are lower waters. This is called the vitreous humor up at top, and below is called the aqueous humor. And it's full of water. It's a cavity full of water. Now, the weird thing is that when light comes in to the front of your eye, that's what you're looking at here. When light comes into the front of your eye, it comes in like a pyramid. And then it reverses inside the lens. It goes from below, it flips the image, and then it goes above, and it's an inverted pyramid. So imagine two pyramid peaks touching each other at the center of this lens. Now, they depict this because not only do they have feathered serpent insignias on their chest, you're going to see pyramids right side up and upside down all throughout this movie. Watch.
The Intergalactic League of Races maintains a base at the bottom of this ocean.
Force field ready, Captain.
Now, we are to survive. We cannot allow the League or anyone else to interfere with our purpose. Field for normal atmosphere. Synchronize the resistors for contact. Prepare to alter cabin pressure for normal atmosphere.
Ready for entry, Captain.
Decrease speed.
What the heck are we watching? Pyramid with all-seeing eye. This is the lower pyramid, just like in the eye diagram. The image comes in, it flips up above the surface of the waters the other way. But then our brain has to turn it back around because it's upside down.
Engage all force fields and begin entry. Disengage all force fields. Activate station.
guys, this is psychedelic. 1977.
Commander, this is Captain Ramses from the planet Alpha, constellation Orion.
So his name is Captain Ramses, of course. He's an Egyptian pharaoh. The pharaohs were the reptilians, you guys. And until we come to terms with that, we won't ever figure it out. They enslaved God's people. Now, why didn't God deal with Pharaoh more harshly? Why didn't he just annihilate all of them? Well, because they are part human. And God gives them a chance. That's why there were 10 plagues. God could have wiped out the Pharaoh in one plague. He gave him 10. He actually gave him 4 chances, or I can't remember. But at some point, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and there were no more chances because God hardened his heart on purpose. But there were several chances he was given, and the Pharaoh couldn't help himself. This is why the pharaohs were depicted as giants in the hieroglyphics, because they were giants. They were descended from Mizraim right after Noah and Ham got off the ark from the flood. The earliest mentions of Egypt was from Mizraim, who was the son of Ham. Mizraim's name translates to mean Egypt. Now, I don't know how the giants survived the flood, but we know there were giants after the flood because the Bible tells us there were giants after the flood. The most notable giant after the flood was Goliath, but there are at least 4 or 5 other mentions of giants after the flood. And they must have been born after the flood. They didn't survive the flood. They were born after the flood. So I believe it was like Ham's wife or something. Yes, Ham was pure, but it doesn't say anything about their wives being pure. So maybe that was one more chance God gave them to coexist between the 2 seed lines.
Captain Ramses, this is God.
See the pyramid there, and then on their chest, you'll see upside down pyramids, I think.
Our base commander.
Here's a really good shot of this feathered serpent on his chest. And I say feathered because it's flying, so it has wings, so it's got to have feathers. Now, at this point, the reptilians decide they're going to wipe out humanity. How are they going to do it? They use a 5G signal to make everyone go crazy and off themselves. A literal genocide, you guys. And so, Casey, why are you calling this 5G? Well, for a couple reasons. You're going to hear in a second. But here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, let's keep watching.
An unidentified flying object has appeared on our radar screens over the past week, gentlemen. There is a tremendous increase in people committing suicide. Wherever this vehicle tracks across a populated area,
the weather forecast for the area is overcast.
Wait, let's back this up. Did you hear this? Did you see this? Hold on. What's this guy doing? Oh, so he's looking and there's cattle mutilations, and I believe it was 1977. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that was one of the first times they mentioned the cattle mutilations. So this actually happened in the movie 1977. We should probably look that up. But wouldn't it be crazy if the movie mentioned it first and then it happened? Now, I don't know if that happened, but whoa.
The weather forecast for the area is overcast and a chance for showers. Present temperature is 57 degrees.
Did you hear that? Present temperature 57 degrees. That's 5G. Now, back in 1977, they didn't even have 1G yet, right? We didn't have internet, not in the way that we know today. They had it for military applications and CERN, CERN maybe. If CERN was around in 77, they say that's where the internet was invented. But we didn't really have it in anywhere in the world. We didn't have internet. That was like a strange thing in 1977. Nobody would have ever believed that something like this is possible. But it's almost as if they knew, the reptilians who control our reality, that 5G was the different technology. 4G and 5G are completely different from one another. 5G requires massive magnitudes more base stations, they call them, to propagate the frequency because it is a millimeter wave. It's different than 4G technology. And 5G was the technology that everybody was worried about. because, it caused people to become ill, and people knew this. They were protesting the building of these base stations around them. And now we have these huge data centers. Imagine the natural fallout, the fallout in nature around these data centers and how damaging it is to the environment. Now, this is crazy. So they show the genocide, they show people offing themselves, and then they say it's 57 degrees outside. That has to be connected. Now, next, they're going to mention data centers. Literally, they say data centers. Let's keep watching.
Martial law is still in effect in this area. The
So they declare martial law.
suicide epidemic is increasing, and world
They call it a suicide epidemic, a genocide.
leaders are meeting in Washington to discuss the emergency.
We finally made the front page.
Then you look on the front page and it says virus specialist epidemic. Wow. Pulse of Metro.
Engaged.
This is the Toronto Star. This is a Canadian film, by the way.
Everything you suspect about UFOs is true.
So here's the above pyramid on her chest, and then their shirts look like below pyramids. Now, they introduce at this point another false paradigm, good and bad aliens. So these are supposed to be the good aliens, and the reptilians are the bad aliens. Of course, that's a false paradigm. All aliens are bad. And at this point, the good aliens ship is damaged, and they need humans to salvage parts from a data center. Listen.
We have been visiting your planet for thousands of years. That a renegade group intends to exterminate your race and repopulate the Earth.
They're in the data center right now. You guys, this looks like our modern data centers. 1977. So they get control of the ship and they win against the reptilians. They fly one of their ships into the data center. Watch. Oh, who could have ever imagined they would have flown planes into the towers?
It's been determined if the two scientists supposedly kidnapped by a flying saucer were aboard the UFO that collided with the data control center.
Data control center. Wow.
It is not. Special correspondent Dave Rawls has eyewitness reports, plus exclusive interviews with the wives of the missing scientists.
Before this, did you...
But I can
Now, at this point, the good aliens admit that they built the pyramids. Now, this is actually true, that the aliens built the pyramids, but it was the reptilian aliens. They're all one, but they're trying to make it look like they're good and bad. And that will be the final setup, probably, or the final deception, where they'll get everyone to believe that there are good aliens versus bad aliens, and then they'll accept the good aliens who win the war, and that will be still the devil, controlled by the devil. But essentially, the pyramids were built by the Serpent bloodline.
tell you that we built the Great Pyramid of Giza. When you understand its meaning, you will know how we built it, how we control gravity, and you will understand our culture.
Then they explain anti-gravitics and how it works.
In Egypt, 10,000 Earth years ago, the ship is powered through reversible electromagnetism. Reversing electric and magnetic energy allows us to control and overcome gravity.
Do you know the masses of these planets by memory?
Yes, I think I can.
Now, this part, we literally get a clue about Neuralink. Before Neuralink was ever invented, they tap into this guy's brain. They hack his brain. because their computer breaks again and they can't find any more parts because the data center has been destroyed. Watch.
Do you know the masses of these planets by memory?
Yes, I think I can remember.
Then we must make a direct patch into your mind for navigation.
Your mind will be moving at a tremendous velocity as our navigator absorbs the necessary information contained in your brain. You must allow your mind to let go of all its petty concerns. Malcolm, you will make the required
This guy looks like Chris Christie. He reminds me of him for some reason. I don't know why, but
computations.
now here's where we get into this scene. And this is what prompted this whole decode, was this scene that seemed to match up with iPad Code 2. Because this is the 5G genocide scene that lines up with the Ukraine genocide of 1933, the Holodomor, the apple rolling across the floor. Watch. And hitting the foot, just like in iPad Code 2. Now in iPad Code 2, it's Obama's shoe. It's a black shoe, and he's standing on a coin. And then this opens up into a lotus flower. But in this scene, she smashes it open with her foot. Now, all this is prompted from the 5G frequency. That's what causes everyone to kill each other and causes the girl to smash the tomato with her foot, because the frequency is making her do it. Now, remember, this girl had just driven through on their way to the supermarket with her mother in the car, and that's where they saw the whole, everyone offing themselves in the streets, and heard on the radio that it was 57 degrees outside. That's 5G, so it's all connected.
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
The butcher comes out, butcher, sacrifice, right? They've even got the Pepsi fetal cells, right? Wow.
Somebody's got to clean up that mess, you know.
Now, offing yourself rates are at an epidemic proportion, just like in the movie. This all started as soon as 5G frequencies began to come online. The two seem to coincide. I'm not saying it caused it. Anyone's reviewing this video, I'm just saying both happen at the same time. You can draw your own conclusions about this. But this study, this is a 2024 story, but it goes back in time and it talks about we are in a current epidemic. Now remember, it was 2020 when Trump signed 5G and beyond during the lockdowns. It says here in 2021, the rates had gone up. And then in 2022, it continued to increase 2.6% from 2021 and has been going up ever since. Now watch this. This is crazy. She looks down and there's a Time magazine. And it says suicide epidemic, which is pretty much happening right now. Now this is not a real Time magazine cover. It's a fictitious one because I looked at all the Time magazine covers from 1977. I did not see this one. But what are the odds, you guys? We've got injections. We've got frequencies. We've got unaliving. We've got Q, the feathered serpent. We have DNA studies. It's all lining up with current events. Wow. Let me check in with you guys. We're going to get into a couple headlines before we end the show today. Thanks everybody for showing up. Let me answer any questions you have before we get into the headlines. Did any of you guys see this movie? It is on YouTube. You can actually search the name, and you can watch it yourself if you want. But what the heck is happening? We're in the Twilight Zone. We're in the Twilight Zone. Turn it upside down. Yep, we're here. It's all happening right now. Now you could connect the 77 number to Trump if you wanted to, but you don't even have to. It's all there, you guys. It's all connected already. So, what would you like me to turn upside down? Now, what else is going on? Well, let's see. Trigger alert. Whoa, trigger alert. I don't want to show you these images, but what's happening now is that squirrels are also turning into zombies. We did a show a couple days ago on the headlines, and I showed you zombie rabbits that have fungus and horns growing out of their faces. Well, the same thing is happening to squirrels now, but it's different. It, it's like a kind of like a leprosy looking with like oozing sores and stuff. And this is happening in the state of Maine and in Canada, according to the story here, New York Post story. Zombie squirrels. And again, I'm not going to show you the picture because it's disgusting, but they're calling this a leprovirus, which sounds a little bit like leprosy. And of course, they're going to blame us. They're saying, oh, it's because people are putting bird feeders out and it's spreading the disease through the bird feeder. Oh, yeah, okay. It has nothing to do with anything else. It has nothing to do with frequencies that are maybe lowering the immune system of some of these animals. It has nothing to do with the rabies pellets you guys are dropping everywhere. So I'll put a link to that story for those of you that are interested. But there are literal zombie squirrels. We had zombie rabbits. There's nothing left. We also have the deer wasting disease, chronic wasting disease. All of these are current phenomenons that have not really happened before. They're modern phenomenons within the last 10 or 20 years. So we're reaching some kind of endpoint, aren't we? Now, tensions are rising between Venezuela and U.S., flaring up again as Maduro continues to be punished for not joining the petrodollar. I mean, Trump says Maduro is a narco-terrorist and needs to be brought to justice. Of course, it's a cover story. And Trump is literally threatening to park a destroyer off the coast of Venezuela. And Maduro is like, we're not having it. And he has now mobilized 4 million militia. And I always tell you guys, if Trump wants to stop drugs coming into America, he should look internally. He should take all these drones that they're flying over protests and all this military they're sending into our cities to quote unquote fight crime when there isn't even a crime problem. And why don't you like put all that out in the ocean and patrol our oceans and look for boats traveling in the middle of the night at fast speeds that are weighed down with something? How about that? But instead, he'd rather look at you and me and mess with people who are veterans and tell you what you can and can't buy with your own tax dollars that you paid into the SNAP program. So one day when you need it, oh, pretty soon they're not going to stop at healthy food, you guys. This is just the beginning. I was shocked yesterday at the division that a lot of people had about the SNAP program. Listen, you and I have paid into SNAP our entire lives. When you need that benefit one day, then you'll understand what I'm saying. Then you'll get it. But until then, we pay our tax dollars into that benefit. I don't want to one day, if I need SNAP, all of a sudden, oh, you can't get that item. That's a premium item. You got to go back to just death food. You guys, the food that they're going to make us eat is death food. That's the big trick. Yes, snacks can cause you to die. But more importantly, if they have control over this, they can now tell you what you can and can't buy with your SNAP benefit. Do you think they really want us to be healthy? No, they're going to say, oh, you can have vegetable oil. You can buy that. It isn't the snack foods, some of them, that will kill you right away. It's the other stuff that they're saying is healthy. Oh, vegetable oil. You can eat all the fried chicken you want. What's going to happen one day when they're like, oh, that's a premium item. You can't have lean meats. You have to eat pork. You got to eat pork instead. You can't have steak or hamburger. You got to have pork. They can say whatever they want. And where's our compassion? Look, I know the system is getting abused. There are people that rely on this money. And we're literally letting Trump come through and like mess with people. And it doesn't stop there. He's messing with Medicare. We don't have compassion for old people anymore. Like, what is happening? In Trump's world, if you're not cool and you don't make a bunch of money, then you're nothing. You're a second-class citizen in Trump's world. And he said it with his own words. Oh, I surround myself with smart people. They're all high IQ people, millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires. I said, I only hang around smart people. Does that sound like the fruits of the spirit to you? Does that sound like someone's priorities that are straight? Oh, he goes, people are lazy. I think more of what the truth is that people just throw in the towel. They work for 40, 60, 80 hours a week, and they realize that all they're doing is working to pay someone else's mortgage and rent. All they're doing is working to pay for overpriced cars that break, increasing electricity and energy costs because the data centers are hogging up 10% of electricity use, so our costs just keep going up. We're paying more and more for water, and the wages aren't going up. I think a lot of people just throw in the towel. They're like, screw it. I'm going to get everything I can out of the system that I already paid into. I already worked for 10 years and paid tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. So screw it. I'm just going to relax. That's probably what people's thought process is. Because most people, when you're born in this world, you want to do something in life, but then you get beat up and you're like, screw it. So I'm not saying that's right. I'm just trying to get you guys to understand what's really happening here. Every single one of you that I've known and talked to, you've never been like a lazy person. It's just like you got beat up. You wake up one day, you're 50 years old, everything hurts. They worked you to the bone. You got nothing to show for it. You worked in a factory your whole life, or you worked at a convenience store or whatever. And somebody else got rich. Convenience store owners got rich. You didn't get rich. You got nothing to show for it. And then now you need SNAP. You've already worked your 50 years or whatever. And now all of a sudden they're going to tell you what you can and can't get. What if you want a Cheeto? I'm not saying Cheetos are good for you. Nobody should tell you. And then we got the bureaucrats, and they're sitting there eating McDonald's on your tax dollars. Do you think Trump paid for that McDonald's? Of course not. It didn't come out of his pocket. That's your tax dollars. Everything gets written off. And Trump is cheap enough to where he probably wrote off that McDonald's meal that he was sharing with RFK Jr., the very person telling you can't buy a Cheeto. Now, how fair does that sound to you? So those of you that were, bagging on people, saying, yeah, they shouldn't be able to eat junk food. Well, where were you when Michelle Obama was like, we're going to take junk food out of classroom lunches? Everyone was all mad about that. But then when RFK Jr. does it for SNAP people, that's great. You have to step outside of the right-left paradigm. And I've always been a strong proponent. Look, if you've worked hard your whole life, if you worked your butt off, then you should be able to get a benefit of something because you paid into it already. That's our money. That's the big trick. For some reason, they've convinced people that are drawing benefits that they didn't pay into the system. Somehow they've convinced people that money from those benefits is from the government. No, it's from you and I. We already paid into it. So if your body is broken because, you worked your butt off and you fell off a ladder or something, you should be able to get a disability. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if they weren't taking tax dollars out of our paycheck, then that's a different story, but they are, and they're not going to change that. It is what it is. So get what you can now because it's all just relative. Now, if you're not being a good steward, if you're being a scammer, then God's going to deal with you for that. Of course, right? I'm not telling people to break the law and be unfair, but do the calculation in your head. Think about it. There were years ago, I was between jobs and I had to get unemployment. It was quite a bit. It was like, I think it was like $1,400 a month. And at first I was guilty, but then I realized I paid into this a lot more than they're giving me back. And they only let me stay on it 2 years. And I was looking for a job every day. And at that time, there weren't jobs because I was in pharmaceutical sales, and it's kind of territory specific. So if you're in a territory where there's no jobs, you could sit there forever and never find a job until you move. But you can't move because you're attached to your ex and you got shared custody with your children. So things are not always what they seem. You got to look at the deeper meanings and how this world is run, and it's not always fair. And so we have to navigate through that and try to figure it out, don't we? But do the calculation in your head, and you'll see that, wow, I should get this benefit for a while until I get on my feet because I already paid into it. You don't want anybody telling you how to spend that money. Now, look, I understand. I wouldn't say like cigarettes and alcohol. Absolutely not, because those aren't food, right? But if it's food, you should be able to get whatever food you need for the amount that they give you back for your benefit. If they give you $150 a month or $300 a month, you should be able to get any kind of food you want. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. Shouldn't be putting, limits on what you can and can't eat. That's ridiculous. That's like some kind of rationing food out to you or something. Again, look, now if the government wants to have their own business, right? I don't know why the government doesn't do this. Make their own business and make it profitable. And if they wanted to then use the profits from that business to give us benefits, then they do have the right to tell you what it is you can't do with the money they're giving you, right? That would make sense, but that's not the case. Their business is our money. So, now, what else is going on? Now, the rest of it, being a good steward, not being lazy, working, all that's between you and God. Okay, I'm not here to tell people, ethics about being a lazy person. Okay, that's between you and God, not some bureaucrat who's stealing our tax money and then trying to tell us how to spend it when we want it back. Now, let me get off of that because I'm getting upset again. Now, after all these peace talks, ready for this? Wait, let's back up here. Let's go to this story. Venezuela mobilizes militia after U.S. is deploying military forces to waters around Latin America. Now, understand the whole reason why Trump is in the United States is mad with Venezuela is because they're independent. They've got oil. They don't need to join a petrodollar. If we haven't learned our lesson, General Wesley Clark listed all the countries. He didn't include Venezuela, but he listed them in order. He said, America's going to go after these countries because they don't want to be part of our economic system. We're going to force them into it. Iran, Iraq, and went on and on. Notice how we're always starting crap with all the countries that have their own oil. Are you awake yet? And they don't like Maduro. And they're going to say whatever they have to say. Oh, it's narco terrorism. Sure. While they freaking do a rail of coke. It's narco terrorism. Sure. So anyway, Maduro, all this is antics. I'm not saying Maduro's a good person. I'm just saying they lie straight to our face. We've been interfering with Central and South American politics for a century, you guys. 4.5 million militiamen throughout the country assuring, this is Venezuelan President Maduro announced the deployment of 4.5 militiamen throughout the country, assuring that no empire will touch the sacred soil of Venezuela after the U.S. doubled the reward for information leading to his arrest and increased the number of troops sailing around Latin America and the Caribbean. Last week, the U.S. government confirmed that it had ordered naval movements in the region to contain the threat from drug trafficking groups. Why are we going over there to do the threat? Why not just park the stuff off our coasts and run radar on the ocean and anything? Listen, if we can't stop boats coming in from other countries with drugs on them, then how is our country supposed to defend us when China or Russia decides to invade us? Come on, you guys. You have to wake up. We have drones that can fly at night. We saw this at the end of the Biden presidency, night drones flying off of destroyers. You mean to tell me they can't find narco terrorists coming into the country? Give me a break. We've got a militarized border. How else are they going to do it? Oh, the narco terrorists are digging underground tunnels 17 miles underneath the surface of the earth. That's how they're getting the drugs in. Okay, sure, someone would believe that. We need a new subterranean force now. That'll be another $1 trillion in tax money. We got the Space Force. Now we need the tunnel force. Oh, wait. Elon Musk's boring company. We'll make him the #1 contractor and he could dig around under, it'll be like Dig Dug. And we'll dig around under the earth and look for narco terrorists with Elon Musk's boring company. $1 trillion contract. It's the Dig Dug Force. I mean, I hate to like trivialize this, but it's the truth. Why is our government and our military pointing drones and military and ICE at us instead of looking out there? And if they can't defend against narco-terrorism, how are they supposed to defend against Russia and China, which I don't even believe either? All that's just fake, right left paradigm stuff. War is genocide. That's what it is. They're just taking out souls, and it's all men. Okay, I'm going to calm down. So, after all these peace talks, ready for this? Oh, Casey, you're just barking up the wrong tree. You just want to pick on Trump. Trump is now saying he might send troops to the Ukraine as part of this peace deal. Wait a minute. Didn't he just say the other day that if he could end this conflict, he would get the Nobel Peace Prize? And now he's talking about sending U.S. troops to Ukraine. Now, if you didn't know, there are already U.S. troops in Ukraine, but they're mercenaries. They're going there voluntarily to make a bunch of money. Donald Trump would be willing to send U.S. troops into Ukraine if it could help secure a deal to end the Russian invasion. So now it's on the table. Now it's on the table. This is the Howdy Doody show, you guys. And Trump was getting awful grabby with some of these guys. I'm starting to wonder, he had his hand on Zelensky's shoulder and he's giving this guy a full body hug. I'm like, what is the heck is going on here? It was like a love fest. Okay. Relax, Casey. Now, tomorrow, archaeologists have dug deeper into an ancient Andean temple in the Andes Mountains, 13,000 feet elevation, and they discovered some aspects of this temple that appear to align with the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in Mexico. Now, here's the problem. The two temples are thousands of miles away. Yet, I found some pretty striking evidence that no one else has found yet because I found it myself. I didn't read it anywhere. I just was looking in Google Earth. And it seems to connect these two temples together, which shouldn't happen. They're two different cultures separated by thousands of miles, but yet these temples are very, very similar. Now, why do archaeologists ignore all these blaring connections? They ignore the connections because it exposes the serpent bloodline. It exposes the connections between Mesoamerica and Egypt, which are inexplicably connected as well. So, we'll get into that tomorrow. I can't wait to present that to you. But yeah, they are definitely connected, you guys. Okay, I'm in the chat. What's beyond the ice wall? So let's go back to this image here. There is nothing. It's just God out here. So what could be happening here is this is like, how do I explain this? Now, these are just theories, okay? There's no hard and fast rules, as I always tell you guys. But if you can imagine, if this is a tree with fruit in it, the retina and the hyaloid canal, the trunk and the tree and the limbs, and this is the tree of life, and it's full of fruit, and it's connected to other trees of the garden. And there are many trees in the garden. And God's in heaven has many mansions. His mansion has many rooms. And all that connects to your brain. Because when light comes in through the eye, it's processed in the back of the brain in a place called the arbor vitae. That is the back of the brain. I believe it's a cerebellum. I'm not looking at a graphic right now, and it's called the arbor vitae, which is Latin for tree of life. And the nerve pathways that emanate from the back of your eye through your optic nerve, it crosses in the middle. That's where Jesus was crucified. And then it goes to the back of the brain, the arbor vitae, the tree of life, which is an extension of this tree of life, right? And what happens? It striates out into many nerves as it enters the back of the brain. Those might be the mansion with many rooms. Now, this tree here could also be the tree of knowledge. This could be the tree of good, and the other eye could be the tree of evil. And maybe that's the answer, but we're still blocked from that. We're trapped here in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but we can't get to the rest of the garden because of the flaming sword. So that scenario would work as well. The northern lights. Now, what's outside the ice wall? Down here, well, nothing. You got to get through this way. Now notice the narrow gate is through the hyaloid canal. The wide gate is down to hell. This is your iris. Notice how much wider it is. It can pinpoint, your pupil can pinpoint, but it opens wide, and that's down here to hell. So, hope that answers your question. All right. What else is going on in here? Bunch of ice holes. Pretty funny, Snowball. Now, ready for this? How many nerves do you have in your brain? There are 12 sets of nerves. Your optic nerve is one of those 12 sets. That is like the 12 tribes of Israel. They are the apple of God's eye. Or were. Right? And the connections just go on and on and on. The eye is the window to the soul. So, ready for this? We also did a study on the angle at which this optic nerve comes into the eye, and it matches exactly the same angle we are told the earth is tilted. Go figure. The angle that the optic nerve comes into your eye is the same angle that we're told that the earth is tilted. What are the odds of that? So it's not the earth that's tilted, it's something up here that's tilted, right? Okay. Yes, the 12 sets of intercranial nerves, they're called. In other words, you experience your entire reality. We experience our entire reality through 12 sets of nerves. Without the 12 sets of nerves, you would be completely detached from reality. You wouldn't see, hear, feel, smell, touch, nothing. That's not an accident. The whole body is a metaphor. You have 12 sets of ribs as well. That's your beast body. This is why we're supposed to keep our eyes fixed on heavenly things, which is the nerves in the brain, near Jesus and God, as they are represented in the optic nerve crossing where Jesus was crucified, which is where the pineal gland sits, and the brain, which looks like the throne of God, and the tree of life in the back of the brain. So, all right. Yeah, 6 fingers and 6 toes. 12. Beam, specks and beams. All right. You guys are talking about heirloom seeds. Yeah, heirloom seeds. Now, all my garden right now is heirloom, so I'm gonna hopefully be saving some of those seeds for next year. I don't know, you guys. Water is expensive. My water bill last month was 110 bucks. Now, normally it's like 50 bucks, but it's even at 110 bucks. That's $50. I mean, you're basically breaking even by growing your own food. You're not gaining anything because you're paying for it in water alone. And that doesn't even include all the infrastructure to start a garden. It would be nice to have a well at some point, but those are super expensive. They never pay themselves off. Wow, Skies over Spokane. It said I had a boyfriend years ago that had an extra set of ribs. Wow. There are 2, 3, and 7 ribs. 237. That's the room number in The Shining. You have 2 floating ribs, 3 false ribs, and 7 real ribs on each side in that order. 2, 3, and 7. That's the beast body. Supposed to come out of fleshly things, aren't we? Yes, data centers need a ton of water and electricity. They're literally telling people to preserve water in areas around these data centers. Like literally AI has taken over. AI has become the priority now. Not you and me, not humans, AI. And people are fast asleep. They just think we like to complain. Well, one day you'll be complaining. And you'll be like, dang, guys like this tried to tell us. And now we live in a police state with robots walking around and AI, and we can't even fart wrong or else we're going to get in trouble. And you're going to be like, how did we get here? Oh, this guy tried to warn us. And all we did was mock him. Just like people mocked Noah when he was trying to tell them there was a flood coming. They just laughed and partied it up. This world isn't going to end. The last days will be like the days of Noah. There will be mockers and scoffers. And here we are. So, thank you guys. I love each and every one of you. Okay, I'm going to pop off of here. It was kind of a long show, but I appreciate you guys showing up. Again, I'm sorry I was late. I got out there at the garden and I was like, dang it, what's going on here? And plus the water bill hit me and I was like, I need to figure this out. So I changed all the settings on the watering to kind of slow it down a little bit. It did cool off and we're in for a cool spell. So that will help. So yeah, have a great rest of your day, you guys. Much love.